The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mai, good afternoon. We're open line on Mannin Line through to 1. The floor is yours. You'll be on the air by calling 66 13 68. You can text on 166 177. Message 166 177. Email studio@manxradio.com. So what do you think about this situation with children's teeth on the Isle of Man? Did you hear that story in the news? It's hoped that a scheme promoting healthy toothbrush habits will improve the oral health of children. This recent survey said of 5-year-olds, more than 25% have decayed, missing or filled teeth. 5-year-olds with filled teeth. In January, government said there was no funding to tackle the problem. Now, through this thing called Smile of Man toothbrushing program is being extended. Now, do you have children? Are you in charge of children? Let me just ask you, do you enforce toothbrushing, brushing of teeth, first thing in the morning, last thing at night? Is it something that you do? And what's the state of the teeth of the children that you're in charge of? Well, this new service is going to be an optional twice-year application of fluoride varnish for all primary school children from reception to year 6, a dental survey of 12-year-olds, as well as the continuation of the survey of 5-year-olds. Oral health resources for weaning and baby teeth care provided to new parents through their health visitors. As of December last year, there were 6,114 people waiting for an NHS dentist on the Isle of Man. Of them, almost a third were under 18. I'm not saying this is a crisis, but it is a problem. And it's a problem that will just involve individuals, but also us, Manx Care. Because if people have problems with their teeth, and oral health isn't just teeth, it's gums and heart problems. Because if you have pyorrhea, just infected gums, that's pouring poison down your throat all the time. So is this something that we need to be doing something about, some sort of social legislation whereby we can enforce this? Because surely good teeth and a healthy dentition is something that is good for the individual and consequently good for society. It doesn't just make nice smiles. Have you got any thoughts on this? But I don't know, we've got no really comparison as to whether it's going up or down, but more than a quarter of 5-year-olds have decayed, missing or filled teeth. The Isle of Man's always been innovative, says 480. It's led the way many times over the years, but perhaps now is the time to lead once again and recreate the excellent healthcare service and role model for the future. If Manx Care was created to sort out the finances regarding what and where government money was being, that's taxpayers' money, was being spent, it seems to have failed, with the innovation being considered in the UK, that is kind of bringing everything under government. No doubt there'll be a scramble of administrators from there to find new jobs. They'll be scrabbling as we speak to the executive recruitment agencies. So the Manx government should beware and listen to our doctors and nursing staff instead of bringing over more experts. We can no longer expect that free healthcare for all, and there's a need for reform, recognition and action of the many complex issues presently concerning the medical profession and patients alike. Understaffed nurses working 12-hour shifts, incoming doctors' conditions, a lack of accommodation. It's just not attractive, says 480. Those who are willing in our government could use this as an opportunity for the Isle of Man once more to be an innovator. Hi, Andy. If the Northern Ambulance is a critical care facility that we need on our Isle of Man, the budget should never, ever be in question for this life-saving service, and our government can give away millions on foreign aid What about us? This is seriously the last straw, and if not, if it is not Manxcare's fault. So CC says, the Chief Minister needs to sort this out today. Did you hear that story earlier? It was on the breakfast show as well. It's all about the Great North Air Ambulance Service, which says the cost of servicing the Isle of Man can't be absorbed by the charity. They just can't afford it. Manxcare's operating plan for 2025-26 reveals that due to the additional cost of insurance and additional safety equipment required for travelling over water, £250,000 is required per annum for Great North Air Ambulance Service to continue its current operations. The health body admits it's unlikely the charity will be able to fundraise to this level each year, casting doubt on the future of the service for Manx residents if Manxcare doesn't foot the bill. Joe Garcia is the chief executive of the Great North Air Ambulance Service. Joe Garcia.
It is down to the question of funding. From the outset, Manxcare were paying the Great North Air Ambulance Service a retainer fee, and then we were then, based on the number of taskings that we would make to the island, we were then receiving a tasking fee as well. Now, that retainer fee was intended to pay the significant upfront costs of preparing the aircraft, both of our aircraft, so that we could ensure that we could always provide a response when we were able to fly. It was to ensure that those aircraft were fitted with equipment to fly over water. So that's flotation devices for the aircraft, life jackets for our crew and a life raft, along with an underwater locating beacon should, heaven forbid, the aircraft have to ditch in the sea. So that all of that equipment has a significant cost to it, and that's what the retainer fee was intended to cover. And then we had what was in reality a nominal tasking fee, because it didn't actually relate to the true costs of tasking based on an hourly rate, if that makes sense. So that's how our arrangement was structured with the Isle. It's probably worth knowing that, the Great North Air Ambulance Service is entirely charity funded. We receive no direct funding from any government department at all. And it's a miracle sometimes that we are able to maintain the two aircraft that we've got, the critical care skills of the consultant doctors and critical care paramedics that we provide as crew on the aircraft.
What do you make of that? Earlier this week we heard about how air traffic control restrictions at Ronaldsway have had a significant effect on Manxcare. That's as when the airport's closed due to a lack of air traffic controllers, the fixed-wing air ambulance service is unable to operate. So lack of air traffic controllers isn't just about your flight to Gatwick or Heathrow. It's patients. This means that the health service has had to rely on HM Coast Guard for emergency transfers during the night at 3 times the cost. So how do you think it's going to affect our emergency service provision if we drop down to just the fixed-wing air ambulance and the Coast Guard helicopter? Do you think the money spent ensuring that the Great North Air Ambulance Service covers, do you think it's been well spent? Any thoughts on this? This all started with that Sir Jonathan Michael recommendation, which was that a HEMS service, HEMS is Helicopter Emergency Medical Service, a HEMS service was established to enhance the air bridge capability. The service is currently provided by GNAAS. However, the additional cost of insurance and additional safety equipment required for travelling over water, £250,000. You heard what the Chief Executive, Joe Garcia, had to say about that. You got any thoughts on the matter? Again, it's in the end, everything, absolutely everything comes down to money. This is £250,000, which, if we retain the service, is going to have to be found. Found from where, you ask? Well, Julie's on now. Hi, Julie.
Hi, hang on, just let me turn my radio down so we're not echoing. I heard this story first thing this morning, and it didn't quite ring true with me, so I've been doing a little bit of delving around, and I've got a couple of questions that I would like you guys to further look into, as far as the GNAS is concerned.
Yeah.
First of all, the value of the equipment, that they're on. My husband's in the Coast Guard, so he quite often is one of the people who brings the helicopter in, to come down for the rescue.
Yeah.
I've also then looked online to how much a helicopter rescue, the average helicopter rescue costs, from other charities and things, across in the UK. Mm-hmm. And they're around about £2,000. The GNAS are charging us £7,000 for each time that they come over here. Yeah, we've got that little bit of stretch of water, and we've got, sort of other additional things to go into. But it still doesn't... We already pay. If you look back online, Julie Edge asked this question in 2021 as to how many call-outs, would come to the Isle of Man, and what the average cost was, and we were already paying them the retainer, which was £250,000, according to that news article, that I've just read upon there.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't all... Yes, we absolutely need the service. I know personally people who have been, not personally, but people who have been helicoptered off, and it's possibly saved their life, or fixed them, doubly quick, and what have you, to get them to specialist care. So I'm not saying that I'm not against, the helicopter, but it can't fly at night. So at night time, we then have to get the Coast Guard helicopter to come in and rescue people, which they're saying is double the cost, but they don't want a retainer. So are we actually better off contracting it to the Coast Guard helicopter permanently and saving ourselves £250,000?
And where does the Coast Guard helicopter come from?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Over on the other side, on a rock. It's somewhere Cumbria
it's
way.
Cumbria, right? It's not the one from RAF Valley or anything like that.
I don't know where that is.
That's on Anglesey.
Oh, right. No, I don't know, to be honest with you, but I know that that is the one that they have to call in at night time, because the GNAS one can't fly at night time.
Well, the thing is, Julie, as you say, this is coming down to money, and whilst it's something that we want, we also want to make sure we're getting value for money. And at the moment, as you say, the Great North Air Ambulance Service has been called, in the past 2.5 years, 62 times, from March 2022 to October. That's basically once a fortnight we've used it.
Yeah. Is it? No, since 2022.
Yeah, it's 2.5 years. That's many. So that's 30 months, 62 times. That's twice a month. So that's every fortnight.
No, I don't think that's that. Yeah, I would disagree with that's the numbers. But if that's what they're saying the numbers are. But so on the basis of that, if they're charging us £7,000 each for each one of those, and yet the Coast Guard, which is government funded, is not charging anything, then maybe we need to be looking in a different direction. I just think it doesn't quite all fit. They said that they need to charge us more because of the equipment that they're using.
Yeah, well,
the equipment
that's all
they're using.
Yeah, that's all a bit
not that expensive.
It's all a bit vague. What does equipment? What is it?
Is. Yeah, well, an inflatable boat.
Yeah.
The monitor, I can't remember what it's called. The bit that goes in the sea. One of those lights that flashes to say where you are.
Yeah.
So I expect on a helicopter that's a reasonable size, and it sends off a GPS location.
Right, yeah.
And some, sort of waterproof, what they call life jackets, and things like that. So there's not a great... The insurance can't possibly be that much just to fly over here. When they're going over water, okay, maybe not as much water, but they're doing Cumbria and Scotland, and I don't know how far out east they go, but it just doesn't seem to add up. That was all I wanted to really say.
Right,
I think somebody needs to be asking a few more questions about it, my opinion.
All right. We appreciate it, Julie. Good to hear from you. Thanks for that.
No problem. Take care.
Okay.
Right, bye-bye.
Well, of course, it's going to be more expensive for the helicopter to come here because I'm just trying to remember, how long does it take to fly over by helicopter from the UK to here? Half an hour or so, maybe? Bit more, perhaps. And that's certainly a twin-engined helicopter. So that's going to be £500-600 an hour to run a helicopter like that. So what do you think about this? I mean, it is all going to come down to money, isn't it? But certainly, if the Great North Air Ambulance Service can't fly at night, and we're going to have to rely on the Coast Guard anyway. Any thoughts? Let's get to the lines now, and we've got is it Alan? Hi, Alan.
Hi there. What I'm phoning up for is the old nurse's home in Westmoreland Road, Main Road.
Yeah.
I see that in an article that the monthly rent is going to be $1,500 a month.
What for?
Now, for one of those apartments down there. And what I was concerned about, we were told when they were building these that these were going to be designed for essential workers and nurses. Now, they could not afford that type of rent, not what the wages are getting. And also, they've put them on the open market now.
£1,500 a month for is this a one or two bed flat?
I'm not really sure, but it's an article that was posted, I think, in the Alman today. It's on Alman News and Politics. And they're asking that the key term, because the rent has got to be £1,500 a month, because it's not just paying back the loan, it's paying back the interest too.
Wow.
And I'm not being funny. We were told a lie because they said that was being built for essential workers and nurses. Now they've put them on the open market.
Well,
I think Cowley and Groves are dealing with it.
I think Cowley Groves have got the contract to do it, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing too is £1,500 a month. Who can afford that? And no parking in the area. There's no parking facilities whatsoever.
All right. Alan, we appreciate that. We'll delve into it and see what we can find out.
Right, thank you very much.
Thanks for calling today, 23 minutes past 12. Cowley Groves have been appointed by the Max Development Corporation to market. It's now going to be called Thie Clag. Thie Clag is the clock house, it's going to be called. So, and there are 37 apartments. So we'll see exactly what's going to happen with that. Have you got any thoughts on it? Have you seen it? It looks nice. It's almost finished now. It's taken long enough, but it's almost finished now. So we watch and we wait and we'll see what happens with Thie Clag. And have you got any thoughts on the Great North Air Ambulance Service as to exactly, I mean, where does the value lie? If it's, I mean, I was saying once a fortnight. Obviously, that's averaged out over 2.5 years. 62 call-outs in 30 months in 2.5 years. So it's needed, and when it's needed, obviously by definition, it's an emergency. So. And a message in from, if government's looking at saving money and getting value for money, then maybe the money that's annually spent on paint and carpet and new furniture could be put into the Air Ambulance Fund, says Francis. Just how much is somebody's life worth if we lose this service when the government squanders more on government employees' salaries? That's Ian's point of view. And a note in that just says, I think the Isle of Man should stop all foreign aid and put taxpayers' money to good use for people on the Isle of Man. That's 854. On a similar vein, I got a note in from Fred. Hi, Fred, who said, here's a subject now. If we think foreign aid and the Foreign Investment Fund, Development Fund is a good idea, why doesn't the government make it voluntary for residents of the Isle of Man? Bear me out. They should stop all government funding going direct for foreign aid and give people tax breaks. So if somebody wants to give money to foreign aid, they can have a tax code and claim it off their tax. Thereby, people can give as much as they want. Maybe there should be a limit on the tax break that's given. But Fred said, surely that will be a more equitable way if people are very concerned about giving money for foreign aid, then they can give it themselves and claim it back off the government. Thereby the government could be doing both things. And think about that? Any ideas on that? I was disappointed and angry to hear one of the main councillors who forced the changes on the bin collections now can't be bothered to attend meetings, says Tony. Is this Mr. Schwengel, who's in the Philippines now? Thanks also, further to my previous post on affordable homes, the nurses' home flats are coming on the market soon. It's being said that Manx Development Corporation will need rents of £1,500 per calendar month for one-bed flats with no parking, just to cover internal interest costs incurred by Manx Development Corporation, says Pat. Well, thank you, Pat. We don't know that's true, but we'll certainly find out and see what the story is. As I mentioned, Cowley Groves. We can't stop foreign aid, says 109. We just can't stop it. It's a bit concerning that this valuable service has to go public to raise awareness that Manxcare hasn't yet renewed the agreement. It's a bad way to treat the GNAS, the Great North Air Ambulance Service, whose staff are dedicated. What must they think of the Isle of Man, says Ali. And if we're talking about 250,000, says Ian, it would be criminal to lose the air ambulance service. The air ambulance service is a need which far exceeds some of the things government shells money out on. A message in this is concerning, let me find it, it's on a WhatsApp. The old nurses' home refurbishment has never been for hospital staff, so their salary doesn't come into the monthly rental. The flats are for anyone to rent who wishes to live and work in the city and don't need a car. It's this 20-minute city thing. I only have one question with this about not needing a car. How are they going to police it? If no parking spaces are allowed, how will they know if you have or haven't got a car? So if you have an apartment, and it's a very impressive building, I don't know whether you've seen it. I mean, it looks Gothic almost looking at it. It's an enormous thing now, looking over Henry Bloom Noble School. If you've got an apartment there and you're not supposed to have a vehicle, what happens if you get one? Do you have to tell them if you get one? Because if there's no parking provision for it, can you just get a car and park wherever you want and not tell anybody? Any thoughts? Mark's with us now. Hi, Mark.
Andy, how you doing, fella?
Very well. It's a gorgeous day, isn't it?
I'm not really a sun person. I'm more of a miserable, down, chucking out with rain or maybe freezing cold and snow and sort of person, but I see where you're coming from.
Anyway,
this air ambulance thing, I'm getting really confused about all this. I mean, we're talking here about a service that could potentially, and has been proved, to actually save lives. And we're talking about 250 grand a year to maintain a link with them. Now, I'm not, again, without sounding judgmental or what have you, but that's the salary of one of the directors of Manxcare.
What do you mean by that?
Why are we... Well, you've got 10 directors of Manxcare. Now, the chief executive gets paid 250 grand a year. And I've actually heard through Manx Skeet and what have you that it's possibly more that the chief executive gets. Now, we're talking about a pen pusher here against registering with a service that saves lives. I don't understand how Manxcare can say, well, a pen pusher's worth more than saving lives, because...
Well, I think they'd probably say that she's the chief executive and that's the going rate.
Yeah, but if you look at, the lady that was on before talking about the Coast Guard, she was very knowledgeable and I enjoyed listening to her. But the Coast Guard is there to save lives, by accident, fishing boats going down, people falling off cliffs and stuff like that. They're not an ambulance service where the air ambulance is an ambulance service. Now, if we haven't got the facilities on this island, and obviously we haven't, if we have to use them, for somebody who's so badly hurt or badly injured or very, very ill that they have to be transferred to the UK for treatment, then surely we can't start humming and hawing about it. That has to be signed, sealed and delivered, because they do offer a fantastic service.
And presumably they've got advanced kind of trauma intervention teams and people on board who know what they're doing on this air ambulance service.
Of course they have, Andy. You're not going to just turn around and say, right, we're going to fly to the Isle of Man, who wants to come for a little trip. They've got trauma specialists, they've got cardiac specialists, so they'll know immediately before they've left the base who they're picking up and why they're picking them up. So when they get to the island and that patient's transferred, the people on that air ambulance can start helping them to live and to survive and give them a fighting chance before they've got to the hospital in the UK. I just find it extraordinary, and I really, really do, that for 250 grand, I mean, that's a drop in the ocean to what Manx Care waste every year. 250 grand is the minimum that we should be saying to them, right, we have to give you this so you can alter the aircraft and you can alter this, that and the other to make it easier to get over to the Isle of Man and back. That's a given. That should be just said, right, you've got that, that's in the bank, don't worry about it because you provide such a wonderful service. And I can assure you, Andy, there must be lots of people on this island who are sitting there, listening to your great programme, your great self, by the way, and listening and going, my God, he must be embarrassed to read this out.
Well, 62 people. There have been 62 instances where it's flown over, and that won't be a routine appointment. That's an emergency. So there have been 62 emergencies that have been looked after by this air ambulance service.
Exactly, and I mean, of that 62, we don't know how many, sadly didn't make it, but we do know, you read about them in the paper quite a lot. There's been several who have made it and are going on to lead very, very good lives, thank you very much. Yeah. And I mean, if we do scrap it, what the hell's going to happen in TT and Manx Grand Prix week? What's going to happen to the riders that get badly injured? Are we just going to say, oh, well, it was your own fault, you knew what you were doing when you entered the the TT? Are we going to say that to them?
Well, we'll see what happens. So as far as you're concerned, £250,000 is cheap at that price?
£250,000, Andy, that's probably a weekend drinking for you and me, but let's be honest, that is just a drop in the ocean to Manx Care, isn't it?
All right. Thank you, Mark.
You have a good weekend, my friend.
Good to hear from you. Thanks for that. Just check the numbers. 55 call-outs in 44 months, April 21 to December 2024. £250,000 per year, £7,000 per call-out. Says Julie, is there anybody else that can do this? Well, we don't know whether there's anybody else that can do it. But again, we're coming back to an emergency. You don't know something's an emergency till it's an emergency. It's like paying insurance. You only need it when you need it. Of course, when you don't need it, it's a cost. When you do need it, it's a very big benefit. And a note in this just says they've got two separate helicopters for the TT and the MGP. Yes, for the Medivac. Yeah, Howard's with us now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. I'm just listening there. I read that this morning about the cost of the air ambulance, etc. Well, as I say, £250,000. That's if you take into consideration that a portion of a job they've done on the promenade of the wall, £1 million, that would have been 4 years' service of the air ambulance for the charity, which was it 62 times out. Now that would be nearly 250 people. So it's £100 a person over 4 years. It's crazy how their minds work. It's the bean counters all over. They know everything and know nothing, and they just keep adding these numbers up and say, oh, we'll cut that out because that's going to save. And then they bring in some diversity officer that are about £50,000-60,000 a year. But that is, I just listened to that chap that was on. They want to get their act together on the air ambulance because it's a vital piece of equipment. Did they incur the same charges when the search and rescue helicopter comes in for a hospital transfer? And this is generally, well, we hear them coming over to our house and going into the hospital.
Right.
And it's the early hours of the morning normally.
Is this the one that comes from RAF Valley, the RAF
That's
one?
The one.
Yeah.
It'll come up from Valley to the island, and then it'll go to a suitable hospital somewhere in the UK.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Presumably we pay for that. Presumably there is a tariff.
Well, it will be, but we've not heard anything about that. It's more about the charity. And it's easier to tackle a charity than a substantial enterprise like the Coast Guard. You're going to get a bigger battle fighting the Coast Guard than what you are with a charity that's struggling to raise funds.
Yeah.
And a vital part of it and all, it's not a hospital transfer, it's a life-saving machine.
And interesting that the chief exec said they get no direct government money in the UK. It's all charity. It's all raised through charity funds.
This is exactly what it is. They go for the people that are struggling as it is, and this is the last thing that they want to see. And of course, they're quite right in what they say. They have to be trained differently. This is the pilots. The paramedics are all trained on a more than adequate basis, shall we say. And the pilots themselves have to be trained for overwater flying, night flying, flying visual flying or instrument flying, and it's a whole different ball game there. So this £250,000, in a sense, it's cheap. They just bought a load of new buses, I believe, and they would have covered cost of that and all, and that's only run up and down Douglas Promenade. But what I come on for, I said to Chris, and you're saying about the old nurses' home. Okay, it's all coming up. The caveat's there, you live there, it's a 15-minute city. But they forget one thing, that these people are going to live in those houses, taking, rental out, and they're going to get old. So they're going to need transport. But what has happened to the old Douglas Corporation flats, the ones that were closed down in Lord Street recently, the ones with the traffic lights there at Quine's Corner? They have, I believe, been sold, or rightly so, the council are not saying who has purchased them.
Well, it's subject to contract, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's understandable. But will the same caveat apply to the persons or company that has bought these flats? And they're obviously going to start, they will demolish them because they're long past their sell-by date. And if they put new apartments, as they call them today, flats, are the same people living in those flats, are they going to have a caveat the same, that they're not allowed to have a car?
Well, the one thing that strikes me, Howard, is that, you know what's exactly at the back of the Lord Street flats, what actually abuts onto the Lord Street flats there? Mm-hmm. Shawsbrow car park.
That's correct.
So it's not beyond the wit of somebody to say that, you could get a space in the car park if you buy one of those flats. I'm not saying that's the scheme, but it's very convenient having a 600 space car park right next to the flats. Yeah.
But also the Premier Inn, they built a place there, and I think they have only for loading and unloading or dropping off. Yeah. But they don't have a car park, but exactly opposite there is it's a government car park, council car park, what we all refer to as Marxie's car park.
Yeah, that's right.
But that shuts at tea time. When Marxie's shuts, that car park shuts.
Does it really? Do they close it?
Well, there's a sign on the wall saying this car park will close when the store closes.
Wow. Okay.
So it's not overnight parking there, but as you say rightly, the Shaw's Brew one, that will be at the back of those, and it's going to take a substantial amount of work to rebuild the back of those flats if they knock it down.
Yeah.
Because Shaw's Brew and a lot of the area around there was just sand, so it could be a problem. But that was the thing, if that's going to take about 300 apartments down there if they're going to build it, because they'll be smaller in height, shorter than what the ones are now.
Yeah.
And they're going to get more flats in the same space, but are people going to be allowed to have a car?
We'll find out. Okay, Howard.
Okay.
Have a good weekend. Good to hear from you.
And you. Take care. Bye now.
It's 20-1 now.
I used to make waves. Now I ride them.
I used to ask why. Now, why not?
Well, I used to set goals. Now I'm set for life.
With no monthly fee, dedicated support and plenty of global perks, Elevate your everyday with HSBC Premier. HSBC, opening up a world of opportunity. See website for details. T's and C's apply. HSBC Bank plc in the Isle of Man is a participant in the Isle of Man Depositors Compensation Scheme, as set out in the Depositors Compensation Scheme Regulations 2010.
Give your home a facelift with Manx Glass and Glazing, whether choosing aluminium or UPVC in traditional or contemporary styles. You can be sure of excellent workmanship and guarantees. Members of Construction Isle of Man and family run for over 30 years, Manx Glass and Glazing are committed to the local community, and they invest in future generations through their apprenticeship scheme. Visit the impressive showroom on Snogborough Trading Estate. Trust Manx Glass and Glazing. Quality and style since 1986.
Employers, having trouble with staff and need reliable advice? Employees, are you treated fairly in the workplace, or do you have a grievance?
The workplace can be problematic on both sides. For any work-related legal issue, contact the employment law experts, Man Benham. They advise employers and staff on all work-related problems with sound professional advice and a transparent fee policy. To arrange your free consultation at Man Benham, call today on 639 350.
Man Benham, here for you.
It's a double header of action for FC Isle of Man this weekend with 2 games in less than 24 hours at the Bowl. On Saturday, the Ravens face Pilkington at the earlier time of 3 p.m. before taking on Prestwich Hayes in a rearranged tie on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Join me, Rob Pritchard and Darren Timpson for FC Isle of Man versus Pilkington at 3 p.m. on Saturday and FC Isle of Man versus Prestwich Hayes at 11 a.m. on Sunday. Manx Radio will be bringing you full live match commentary on our DAB and AM 1368 channels. Live coverage of FC Isle of Man on Manx Radio is supported by Selton, investing in our community.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Not everything boils down to money, says Lawrence. When money gets tight, it comes down to priorities. I suggest the government sets out the priorities clearly so voters can confirm. As it stands, we appear to have a gap between what the voters want and what the current government wants. And Paul said, this is disgraceful about the helicopter. People will die. Putting a price on life. Shameful. And Robert's on now. Hi, Robert.
Hi, I've got a bit of a notion which one of your callers called in yesterday to Rob Callister.
Yeah.
I'm talking about deteriorating houses. Was that what she said or something?
Yeah, we're talking
like
about the fact that people can let houses deteriorate over the years and nothing happens.
Well, it deteriorates, but yeah, you're right. I think in terms of having a register or something like that, is that beyond the scope of government or what?
Well, each council has got a derelict buildings list, so they will have a list of things, and they've probably got an officer that goes round. But as it stands at the moment, and certainly if you take the roof off a building, you don't pay rates.
Well, how do we fix this?
Well, somebody's got to decide to do something, whether it's central government or local government. As it stands at the moment, people can who've got a derelict property or a deteriorating property can dance around the rules, and nothing really happens.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to me that the politicians don't have the teeth, or at least the inclination to deal with this, and they're just going to put it into the long grass. Is that correct?
Well, there's no votes in it. That's one thing. They won't be as that much of a priority. But as what you do about it, somebody somewhere, a politician somewhere, has got to do something about it. These famous private members' bills that they bring in. Maybe it's down to a politician to bring in a private members' bill to do something about it. And it'll only happen if you hit the person who owns that property in the pocket, Robert.
Right, and that would be called some type of increase in rate, or what would that be called?
Rob Callister said he should be a punitive. They should increase the rates enormously so that the owner's got to do something about it.
I'd probably sell it or get someone in, maybe. Because that would decrease the insurance, wouldn't it?
Well, something has to happen. Either that, or you just get used to having these properties that look like, ghost buildings.
I think it's about breathing new life into where was perhaps not so much. I think that's something that needs to be considered. If there is an officer for each area, or whatever each borough council is, I can't remember what we call them, and the commissioners, isn't it? Then they need to get together and have a meeting, either over Zoom or something like that, and bring that to the fore for a private member's bill.
Okay.
So maybe that needs to be implemented.
Appreciate it, Robert.
Just an expression. All right, thanks.
Good to hear from you. 14 minutes to 1. Bonzo's joined us now. Hi, Bonzo.
Hello there. Yes, hearing about all these shocking things from Manx Care, such as, of course, the cuts in breast cancer screening and cervical cancer screening. And now, also with the contract with Great North Air Ambulance, to provide air ambulance services. Right. Well, okay. Question: what's happening next Tuesday?
What's happening now? Oh, it's the vote, isn't it?
Yes. £20 million supplementary vote to DHSC for Manx Care. Right. Now, this kind of stuff is how to do it government 101 that goes back to the ARC. If you're a department, what you do is you float various stories about how you're going to cut things to vital stuff in a very frightening way, so that then encourages the constituents to collar their MHKs and insist that they vote for the supplementary vote.
Oh, I see.
It's good old-fashioned emotional blackmail.
Create a crisis, offer a solution, and then send the bill.
Absolutely. Yeah, got it. Yes, you'll go far. Yeah. So that's what is happening now. Of course, UK are now showing us the way forward, because Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer have now decided to abolish the idea of arm's length operation for healthcare, and is having a bonfire of the managers, and that's the kind of thing that we need to have, because much of what is done under the name of Manx Care isn't particularly appropriate at all. And I'm not quite sure the ratios of this, but from what I hear from people involved with Manx Care, much of the time is spent sorting out management information, KPIs and such, KPI reporting, and the KPIs themselves aren't applicable to actually what they're doing. So you have a large proportion, comparatively large proportion of the workforce who are busy collecting and collating this management information from the other proportion who are actually the proportion of people who are doing things. So that's a whole layer you can start cutting out. And as they have done with NHS England, because NHS England, I think the initial tranche of people who are going something like 9,000, and 9,000 of those are pretty highly paid management orders.
So what do you think is going to happen on Tuesday?
Oh, on Tuesday, of course, the vote will go through. Do we remember the traditional £10 million annual supplementary vote for DHSC? But of course, Manx Care, costing more and doing less, will demand this. It would be very hard for politicians to vote it down. But after this, I think there needs to be, before the next election, very much an adoption of the kind of policy that the UK are doing in rolling back this idea of arm's length operation, which is just another layer of very, very expensive, unproductive.
But all we know, as the public, as the users of the system, all we know is that it's difficult to get a GP appointment. It's difficult to get an NHS dentist. It's just, and so if at the granular, the floor level, it's not delivering, then, I mean, what's the answer? As users, how do we advocate for something that's better, Bonzo?
I think by reminding our MHKs that their job interview is coming up.
Well, that'll concentrate the mind.
Absolutely, wonderfully it will.
Okay. All right, have a good weekend, Bonzo.
And you.
Thanks for calling today. It's 10 to 1 now.
We make oil heating easy with our range of services. Whether it's our free smart tank monitoring systems or just our efficient all-island deliveries, Ellen Banning Fuels has it covered. Call us on 844 000 to find out more.
This Easter, don't miss the Dino Express Easter Holiday Adventure. Journey from Douglas Station to Ballasalla with a dinosaur treasure hunt on the way. Then your Jurassic Ranger will escort you by bus to Russian Abbey, where you'll meet Loki the Velociraptor, Bronwyn the Brontosaurus, and much more. To avoid dinosaur disappointment, book now. Call 662 525 or visit rail.im.
Discover Bath Line, the new name in bathrooms at Haldane Fisher. Visit their brand new bathroom and tiles showroom in Douglas for a stunning range of bathroom styles and designs. Or get inspired online at bathline-bathrooms.im. Whether traditional or contemporary, Bathline's dedicated in-house bathroom designers will bring your dream bathroom to life. Bathline at Haldane Fisher. Designed for living.
Back pain, neck pain, headaches, joint pain. At Align for Life Spine and Posture Clinic, we've been helping Manx residents for 15 years with our holistic, evidence-based care and therapies. Plus, we're now open Saturdays to make it even easier to see us. Visit our brand new website at alignforlife.com or find us on Facebook for opening hours and more information. Align for Life, 15 years serving the community of the Isle of Man.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Look at that time. It's 8 minutes now before 1. Completely agree with your caller, Mark. Says WhatsApp 022 regarding the air ambulance. This is a vital service that they shouldn't even be questioning about paying the money needed to the charity because it saves life. It's a much needed service, that is the air ambulance. Manx Care aren't fit for purpose, says 352. And surely get rid of them and give DHSC something to do. Back to the lines now, and we've got, I think is it Janet? Janet's with us. Hi, Janet. Or is this Janet? Hi, Janet.
Yes, it is.
Hi, hello, Janet. Yes. Hi, Janet.
Hello.
You're live on the air, Janet.
Right, okay. Just going back to the previous person before the one you've just had.
Yeah.
I mean, he hit the nail on the head, didn't he? This government wastes so much money on their harebrained stings, like £1 million for that silly wall down the prom, just one. The total mess that they've made of the boats and the moorings and Liverpool, etc., and their docking, the list goes on. If they had half a brain, they would have made a bigger airport and got a fleet of helicopters to get people on and off, because it'd be a lot quicker than what they have to do with now, wouldn't it?
Well, helicopters cost a lot of money. I'll tell you that for nothing.
Yes, but I mean aeroplanes instead of the boats that take so long, and the fact that it doesn't go, and the moorings. You know, you've got to have the tide right and whatever else it is. You'd be far better off spending money down the airport and getting some planes going, and the helicopters for the emergency, like you say. And as the other fella said, that the hospital is a joke half of the time. No offence whatsoever. And you could use those little helicopters to get people to emergency appointments in Liverpool,
right,
or wherever,
okay,
whatever hospital they're going to.
Okay. All right.
Instead of having it here. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, it's not rocket science, is it?
Well,
and these people are supposed...
No, carry on.
That, yeah. No, I mean, the money's there. It's the people that are in power that are wasting the money that's the problem.
All right, okay, appreciate it.
You can see, I mean, that's loads of things that they've just wasted money on, and I mean, there's plenty more than that.
All right, thanks, Janet.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that. Good to hear from you. Let's get to Steve. I think we've found Steve now. Hi, Steve.
How you doing? You okay?
Yeah, fine, thanks, Steve.
Good man. Yeah, just everyone you listen to about the health service and Manx don't care, or Manx care, it's a joke. And the government have been let to get away with murder for years and years. I mean, that lady was saying they waste, millions, 100 million for a docking for the boat in Liverpool. Don't need it. Absolute waste of money. The promenade, total waste of money. Health service is failing, and yet failing every time. Beds closing, losing wards in hospital because they've got no staff to run them. It's an absolute joke.
I think, Steve, we need to make one point, is this is nothing to do with the staff. This is not the nurses and the orderlies and everybody else.
Doctors are brilliant. Doctors are great. But what annoys me is the old system were fantastic. For what use the new Nobles is, they should have kept the old one. Because all they do is ship you on a plane or a helicopter to take you off. Why not get good services over here? They would have to keep flying the people away.
Right.
Oh, we can't do because there's no professionals over here.
So
what gets you is very quickly. Very quickly.
Invest in consultants, you say?
Invest heavily in the health service. Very quickly, the old system would be you'd go to your doctor years ago, he'd sit down and he'd look at you and say, that needs seeing to that. He'd turn around, he'd get his pad, he'd write a few bits of notes, he'd give you the piece of paper and say, go home, pack a bag, and go to A&E, they'll check you in. So you'd have the operation or whatever you need done. You'd be home the next day or 2 days later, right? Nowadays you go in, they look at you, he turns to the computer screen, or she does, types a few words and refers you to the hospital via a letter to the email, right? You could be waiting months to a year to get in, then they send you an appointment, you go in, they look at you, yes, we agree that needs sorting, go back home again, wait for another appointment to come through. It's causing a backlog and the system doesn't work. Doesn't work, Andy.
Well, something somewhere's gone wrong, hasn't it?
The government, they want getting rid of them. I haven't got a clue. They don't finish one thing. They do one thing, get it half-cock, move on to something else, then move on to something else. They should be made to finish, Andy, one thing, get it beautiful, get it perfect, and then be allowed to move on. This place is falling apart around their ears, and they don't care, Andy.
All right, have a good weekend, Steve. We appreciate it.
Take care, Andy.
Cheers.
To that, mate.
After listening to your show today, can I give the Coast Guards a shout across the island for doing a great professional job? We can't get involved in the political stuff, but we carry out our duties at a top level. That can be a water rescue, cliff work, or doing the helicopter transfer. Everyone we deal with can't thank us enough, said that from the Coast Guards. That's it. Meet your MHKs this weekend. Rob Callister in Onken, Jason Morehouse and Tim Glover in Arbury Castle, Town and Maloo. And we're back on Monday with an open line on Mannin Line. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phone today. Have a great weekend.
WI